And so a major goal of this panel was just to say, there's a lot out there, there's a lot we could engage in. Don't be nervous about it and think, oh no, we just need to hold on to what we've got. But let's really find a way through SECA. I mean, if there's a subcommittee that folks would want to form, or a subgroup where people could really delve into these issues in more depth and provide routes of communication to the state folks who will be implementing these issues. And honestly, I mean, I could be corrected, but I think in implementation of the Class Act, there could be ways that we would participate in encouraging employers to participate in it, helping do the actuarial studies that keep the premium as low as possible and make the payout as high as possible. These are all things that are going to be being planned the next couple of years, and then when it's put in place, we are going to need to encourage people to participate in that program and take advantage of the voluntary payroll deduction, even though it is opt-out. You know, when we need to talk employers into being able to do it, and when it becomes more broad-based, it helps more and more people. So, you know, picking up on Rick, what are your thoughts? What are your questions? And we'll try to respond or get other responses from the audience.
Hi, I'm Shirley Adams from Orange County. Am I on?
Just a second.
Oh.
Go ahead, try again.
Okay, it's on now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Shirley Adams from Orange County, and I can really relate to this situation about long-term care. I have a daughter that's disabled, and so she's not going to be able to take care of me. I have another daughter, and she's already got a commitment to take care of my disabled daughter, so I'm worried about me, what happens to me. So I got about 5 different estimates on long-term care. They're huge. I couldn't afford any of them, so I got nowhere. So I would love to see us do something about this, because I have a lot of friends that have the same concern. And they're not disabled, they don't relate to my situation, but they just cannot afford long-term care. So if SECA could get involved in that, I'd love to be a part of that. The other thing, though, is I'm not sure that I understand this right, but it seems to me that there's a conflict of interest, because I've always been told that IHSS is the only program that's reimbursable, and it takes about 2 years to get the money back. And I'm thinking it comes from federal money. So how can they now take 3.6% back and get that from federal money when their feds are already giving us the money back, or giving it back?
A couple of points to address what you said. First of all, you said you mentioned that you'd been pricing out long-term care. So you mean long-term care insurance?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the other mysteries about that, I don't know if you've encountered this, you probably won't encounter it until or unless you actually apply for the insurance. It's a heavily underwritten product. So, you know, their ideal candidate is someone who's very young and is going to pass underwriting and then, you know, never collect on the benefit so that they can make a lot of money. But anyway, with respect to, I'm guessing that the 2 years that you're talking about is how long it takes the counties to get their money back. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, the realignment funding. But the cut itself, and that's correct, and that's nothing that really should affect a consumer who is signing up for IHSS services. The cut that was just enacted is a 3.6% across the board hours cut, that authorized hours, that takes effect 90 days after the date the bill was signed, and the bill was signed a couple of days ago, so sometime in January. And it will be up to the consumer to determine how to allocate that cut. So it's even though you're supposed to be assigned a certain number of hours for different tasks, don't worry about that. It's a 3.6% hour cut. Your provider won't get paid for that 3.6%, but you can decide how you want to allocate it.
I'm still confused, but that's okay.
Well, about the 2-year issue, or?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, is it the federal that reimburses for IHSS?
It's a combination of federal, state, and local money. The local money, by and large, gets reimbursed by the state. So the counties do pay money, but it takes them about 2 years to get that money back from the state, their share.
So the state is not getting reimbursed then, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
the federal monies come pretty quickly. In fact, they advance pay and they just balance it throughout the year. There's a complicated formula within IHSS. There's a portion of funding that comes from the sales tax revenues and vehicle tax they call realignment. And a portion of that money takes 2 years before they calculate how much they have left over to divide. So that's the portion that comes back 2 years later.
Okay.
It's only a small portion of the whole.
And it goes to about a half a dozen different funds at the local level.
Let me ask a quick question first. When we got the personal care option funding, it was right like 3 or 4 months after the 12% across the board cut. And that 12% cut was reimbursed with the person on April 1st to reimburse the 12% cut. Is that what's going to happen with this provider fee? If you get the amendment approved, is it going to go to reimburse the 3.6% across the board cut?
That's not how it's written in the statute. The provider fee is what's preventing it from being a 5%, 10%, 20% cut or more. Bowers.
First of all, you guys did an awesome job this afternoon. Very informative panel, so thank you. I wanted to make a comment first quickly about public authorities and then about money follows a person and cash for counseling. I've always been an odd man out on this perception, I think, but my feeling is that as somebody that was involved very early on in seeing the formation of the public authority model from the ground up and seeing it implemented literally from the very first day with Eldon's. The thing that I've always felt, and it's obviously water under the bridge, but it's just a perception, is that once we did 1682 as a mandate and it became legislation, I think it killed so much of the potential of this service model. And I've always, more than anything, I've been saddened by that because I just felt such hope for this concept in the 90s. And obviously, Dawn is the shining star, I feel, in the state, and LA is also excellent. But the reality is that too many counties treated this in just a very obligatory manner and implemented it in the most marginal, way. And Rick, you talked about, it's not administrative, it's service, but unfortunately in too many counties, this has just basically become another level of administration. Again, very saddening to me, and seeing people is using this as just kind of like a leap up the career ladder. That it needs to be much more than that, and I think that we just lost much of the impetus, and I hope we can regain that. And the other thing is, I'm heartened to hear you talk about consumer control and making that an inherent part of any new dialogue and models that we develop, because I've been an advanced pay person since 1997, and it's literally a lifesaver. Not everybody's capable of doing it, granted, we all realize that, but it's a great concept, and I hope that we can maybe get legislators and the general public away from this concept of us as consumers as frail, helpless, and passive, and let them know that we want an active participation in our care, that we all deserve that should be part of our right as human beings. And I hope that between all of us that we can take that on as a responsibility in dealing with the public and informing people that that's really how we need to start focusing things. And thank you guys again.
I think you put that extremely well, and I think you really put out the gauntlet, I think, to public authorities. Everybody here should go back to the public authority and say, what can we do to make it more of a service and less of administration?
Hi, Janie Whiteford over here. Rick, I want to piggyback on what you just said. I've always been really concerned, and John knows my concern too, about all of the public authorities that came on after 1990 or 2002 when it was mandated, and they just pay it lip service and it becomes another bureaucracy for them. And the fact that the state has allowed this to happen, even though in statute they said that it absolutely had to be separate, I've always maintained that this was an underground regulation, and that the longer we see this go into effect, the more it becomes a regulation because we're ignoring it, and whether SECA as an organization should take this on. So I'm just putting this out there for everybody that maybe this is something that we should look at, that this has been going on too long, it's become an underground regulation, and hey, let's put a stop to it. I also want to take Donna's challenge to heart for SECA. All of us, the challenge was there. What do you want to see your public authority do? And I think it's up to us to take that when we do our strategic planning, which I just talked about, that you've got to look at this. And we talked about not short term, but long term. Where do you want to see it go? I know in Santa Clara County, we had looked at several years ago doing what we called a private pay registry off of our regular registry, and we were really hot to see that go. We have a nonprofit that does that has the management services contract for our public authority, and it was a perfect fit. But there's a lot of issues here, a lot of issues with the liability, a lot of issues with who's going to pay for Social Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that have to be ironed out that you don't have when you do the others. So, but I think that something that is close to my heart. There are so many people in that gray area that cannot afford to go to agencies to pay that $25, $26, $27 fee for in-home care, where you can take the people you already have on your registry and utilize them. We have 450 people on our registry in Santa Clara County, and they're not getting the work they want. So it's a huge issue for us, and to not be able to utilize that workforce is an absolute sin. But I would like us, SECA, to take on the challenge that Donna gave us and really see where we can go with that.
I have a number of questions which I say, but I'd like to answer your question. Can the public authority do this? My feeling is a big 10-4, but it is a big question mark. The question mark, just like the regional working group that works so hard to create a public authority. We must, I know I've said nobody in this room, but if we can make this dream happen, we can get back to what the public authorities were created to do. And what I mean, they have to get back to consumerism. And every county that has a public authority can learn from some of us that been around, and we share what we've been able to accomplish. And